You're listening to In Sickness, a caregiving podcast from the Negative Space with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima.
Hi, Justin.
Good morning, Allison. How are things going over there?
Not great.
Oh.
Since the last time we talked, Sean had yet another surgery for another oral cancer in his mouth. And so we are still in the recovery mode. It has gone better than the last 3 times in that we have not ended up in the hospital. But I've been kind of doing the math because last time on day 10 is when he out of nowhere all of a sudden had pneumonia and sepsis and 911 and all the things. And today is day 10.
Okay.
So he was okay-ish right now. But, last time it came out of nowhere. So I've been sort of living on this moment to moment. And then actually something I've noticed that I was thinking you and I could talk about on another day is how, it's just Sean and me here in this house, plus all the animals, right? But I work from home. We spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And I notice how our moods are very intertwined. So it's he all of a sudden, if I know he's sitting in the living room, head in his face, head in his hands in pain, that very much affects me. And then all of a sudden he perks up and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I feel better.
Yeah.
Which is a hard thing. So anyway, I think that we could have a whole conversation about that. So still in pain. It's manageable at this moment. But it has just been a pretty rough couple weeks. Plus it's February. Plus, Minnesota is in a really hard place still.
Right.
And so lot of hard things going on. So just trying to inch our way through each day, taking a lot of naps in between things and, lots of exciting things happening with the Negative Space. And we can next time, all of that will have launched. And so I can tell you about it next time. But that is definitely a bright spot.
Oh, good.
Amongst the rest of it. So yeah, that's me. How about you?
Things are steady over here.
Steady. Love it. Not a word I'm familiar with, but love it for you. Steady.
Yeah. We're just going through life. I have a brief trip coming up in the next week. I'm going to Toronto to get some tattoos. So that's
love it.
Going to be exciting. It'll be nice to kind of step out of just daily life for a couple days and just kind of exist in space where I don't have all the things, whether it's work, whether things at home, all of that. I don't know. I'm hoping it can be kind of a refreshing little break. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. It is February, like you said, and February is a tough month. It's I saw there's a clip and it's from a newscaster did this piece on February. I don't know, maybe the 80s about how February is just the rough month. Yeah. And if you can get through February, you're going to get through the year. Right. It's the one you got to get through. And it feels like that sometimes, right? Yeah. A couple years ago, I realized that. And every year I have to remind myself of that. It's okay, you know what? In February, you hate everything. Yep. And you're real pale. And everything's terrible. Yeah. But it's because it's February. So I've been trying to remind myself that too, where I'm I'm so tired. And I'm well, there's a lot of reasons for you to be tired, but also it's February. It's getting lighter. It is. I noticed that in the evening. It's not light long, but there's light in the evening. It's true. You're going to be out in your garden before you know it. I can't wait. I'm going to start planting my indoor seeds soon. Nice. So that's going to bring some green inside. There's this clip from Lord of the Rings that I saw. Okay. Of I'm not a Lord of the Rings buff, so I'm going to get all the names wrong. But someone's about to die, and the other one's holding him. Okay. And he's trying, and he's soon spring will come, and the buds hold on. You know what I mean? And then the meme was basically this is my husband trying to get me through the February slump. So that's kind of how I feel. Is I can't make it. Right. But soon we'll get through it. No, it's not sub-zero here anymore, which it was for most of January. Yeah. And so that actually feels great. Yeah. I can take a walk without those grippy things on the bottom of my boots. That's good. That's good. So, it's the little things. It's just the little things. We got to find them wherever we can. We can. Yeah, we need to do that. Yep. We do. We do. Yeah. So the other thing with February, is it is Rare Disease Month. That is true. The last day of February is Rare Disease Day. Is that? It is because,
February 29th, when they have one, is obviously super rare, right? So that's why they do it. But if they don't have a 29th, then I think they do it on the 28th.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I thought we could talk about rare diseases. With Sean, that's I don't know how rare Fanconi anemia is, but
we can talk about that.
It's on that kind of in that category, I guess. And I'm sure there are some unique challenges navigating healthcare and all of that when it's something that is not well known, common, any of that. So
yeah, for sure.
What do you think about that?
Absolutely, that sounds great. So I think when I looked it up, or the definition of a rare disease is that there are fewer than 200,000 people who have it
in the world.
Yeah. So I love it. I have all these like researchers and doctors and scientists in my phone. So I reached out to one of the scientists this morning, and I was like, hey, how many people have FA? And she said that in the United States, there are fewer than 1,000.
Whoa.
Which really blew me away. I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm like, I probably know all of them. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're such a small community. I'm like, I could name hundreds of people that I know with this disease. You know what I mean? And so it's like, wow. And so for me, it also had this moment of like less than 1,000 people in the US. And I think it's probably, well, and this is something we can talk about, but like in the United States, there's more knowledge of it, awareness, all of the things. So the numbers worldwide are way probably lower. That doesn't necessarily mean there aren't people with FA.
It's underdiagnosed.
It means that it's underdiagnosed.
Right.
Exactly. But it just kind of blew me away when I was like, only like less than 1,000 people. And there's this whole Fanconi Anemia Foundation.
Right.
There's this like that's dedicated to this. Like there are researchers like this woman that I texted this morning who like this is her job is to like research this. Like it made me like really grateful for all that is actually being done in this community, considering it's less than 1,000 people. So anyway, that was sort of a shock to me to learn that number this morning. But I mean, I think if I go back to Sean being diagnosed,
let's talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it took a year for him to find a diagnosis. And Fanconi anemia is a genetic disease. Some people who are born with it have missing limbs, maybe missing fingers or some physical abnormalities. And so immediately upon birth, you're like, something's going on. Some of them have things with their organs, kidneys, livers right away, you know, so that like right at birth, they're like, what's happening? There's also like, I don't know what letter they're up to, but there's like the Fanc A gene, which is what Sean is. That's the most common. But then it goes all the way. I don't know what letter they're on now, but at least like J, K. Oh, wow. Like a lot of them, right? So within Fanconi, even the 1,000, there's other subgroups.
Wow.
So he's A, and that's the most common. So that's what they know the most about.
Okay.
But then there's some that like only a couple people have.
Right.
So it's even rarer within the rare, right? And so there's certain ones that are more severe, right? And so some of them that it's like, okay, we know, you know, or like BRCA, have you heard of the BRCA gene? So BRCA2, you know, is a gene that like, it's linked to breast cancer.
Okay, right.
And so people who have the BRCA gene are more susceptible to having breast cancer.
Right.
And so there are people who have FA who have the BRCA gene, right? And then that's potentially a more severe version.
Gotcha.
So there's even that within the group, right? And so he, you know, had no symptoms.
Right.
He had no like physical abnormalities, nothing. He was 31-ish. He had a skin cancer. And then we went to the dermatologist. They were like, you have 11 skin cancers. And they were like, that's weird.
Okay.
And then they did some blood work and they were like, your numbers are a little off. That's weird. But then it was like, actually we were at we went on a trip with little Maya and we were in Vail, Colorado, and he just was like unwell. And so I took him to like an urgent care.
Right.
And she had me leave the room because a lot of people along the way thought he had AIDS or HIV because his white count was really off. So she had me leave the room to talk to him.
Yeah.
To be like, something's going on. You might have HIV.
Oh.
So she was the one at this urgent care that was like, something is weird with you.
Okay.
You got to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And so along the way, lots of people kept being like, I think she should leave the room. And he's like, I don't have HIV. She can stay.
Yeah.
But basically they just like, nobody knew. And we were at all these different places, and we were at Mayo Clinic, which is like the place of all the places. Right. Mm-hmm. And they did the test. It's a really fancy test to test for FA. Mm-hmm. And because it's a DNA breakage syndrome. And so what they do is they take the DNA. This is actually super fascinating to me. They take some DNA. I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong, and if you or I had chemotherapy, our cells, our DNA would be like, that's weird. But then we would our cells would repair themselves.
Okay. Right. Mm-hmm.
A person with FA does not.
Okay.
So they essentially put some chemo stuff on the cells and then see what happens. So they did the test for FA at Mayo Clinic and then said, you don't have it.
Oh,
we don't know. And they said, we don't know what's wrong with you. You're just a weird guy. Just go live your life. So we did for 6 months.
Wow. So how much at that point you knew that they were testing for FA? Or
it was one of the many things that they were testing for.
It wasn't something that you had what is that going to mean? What exactly is the thing? Okay.
Because it was on a long list of things they were testing
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Test came back. It was negative. They were like, go live your life.
Oh, man.
And we're like, okay. And then they called us 6 months later and they were like, the test that we've been doing, the one I just described, we've been doing it inaccurately for the last 18 months. And so everyone who was tested needs to be retested. And they're like, we don't think you have it actually, but you need to come back and get tested. Mm-hmm. So he went back and then they're like, oh, whoops, you do have it. What? So, that's a whole other thing right there, right? Yeah. Is that they messed up. But so we found out, but then it was just because the guy who was there had done his residency under this guy at the U of M who was this is his expert, was able to connect us to the U of M, which is actually the one of the world's leading centers for it.
Right.
But I think if we had still lived in Indiana, which is where we both grew up, they would have never found this diagnosis.
Right.
It's because it's super rare.
Yeah.
Because it's really rare to find it in an adult because often they find it in kids. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody in the state of Indiana would have thought to check for it.
Yeah, right.
So I think the only reason they thought to check for it, number one, because we were at Mayo, but number two, because we're in Minnesota, where one of the leading centers is. And so people are more aware of it. They've talked about it, it's whatever. Mm-hmm. But I truly feel like if we were still in Indiana, they would have never tested for it.
Yeah.
So what would have happened then is by the time they tested for it, they realized he was in bone marrow failure.
Right.
And they're like, you got to go have a bone marrow or a bone marrow transplant. And people with FA can't have the regular amount of chemo and radiation because of what I just described.
Right.
And so if he had been in Indiana and they discovered, oh, you need a bone marrow transplant, didn't know he had FA, they would have given him the chemo and radiation and it would have killed him.
Oh.
So that's another piece of this, is that there are people in their families we know where this has happened.
Wow.
Where they didn't have a diagnosis.
Right.
But then they did have bone marrow failure or they had cancer.
Yeah.
And they got treated like a typical person and then they passed away. And the people just think, oh, well, I either passed away from the cancer, right?
Right.
And so it's only in those families when there's a sibling.
Okay. Because it's genetic.
Because it's genetic.
Right.
So then if a sibling later on has something and then somebody maybe tests the sibling and they're like, wait, the sibling has this thing called FA, that then they were like, oh no. Does that make sense?
Wow. Oh.
Yeah. So it's less than 1,000 people that we know of, but what I think is that there's people out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who have it, who are just think like, oh, I have bone marrow failure. Oh, I have cancer, but don't realize the underlying thing.
Yeah.
But then they're not being treated the correct way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would imagine something that is that rare. There are, I would assume then, numerous doctors, maybe the majority of doctors, going through all of their training, residency, all of that, and never hearing about something like this, right?
We have heard from multiple people. There's one question on the boards.
Okay.
About Fanconi anemia. Okay. So people it's one question, and I don't know what the question is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No. So something I'm curious about is you can obviously, you have a lot of knowledge about FA right now, right?
Correct.
that was not always the case, right?
Right. Yeah.
So when Sean first got that diagnosis, like, did you try to like Google, like, what is this? Like,
right.
or did you get like a primer from the physician who diagnosed him? Or was it like, okay, what is this thing? I've never, well,
right.
Maybe you remembered that he had previously been tested for it, but maybe not.
Sure.
And like, yeah, what was that first exposure to? What even is this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's not like let's say we'd been sitting there at Mayo and they had said you have lung cancer.
Right.
We would have had like a, it's called your magic store. It's like your brain, the file folder in your brain that tells you what's your schema file of that. And I would have had some pictures in my brain of what that could look like.
Or maybe they would have like a pamphlet.
Yeah, a handout.
For like,
right. Exactly. Yes.
You have lung cancer. Now what?
Exactly.
Right,
totally. 100%. 100%. And we could have been like, oh, my cousin had this.
Right. You have reference points. Yeah.
Yes. But no, they were like, he has this thing. And I was like, I mean, I knew it was bad, but I didn't have any clue. Like, how bad? Why? What does it mean? How does it work? Any of it. I just was like, okay, this is bad. They did. So the interesting thing is, so Sean he used to work for an organization where he supported orphan homes in Latin America and the Caribbean. So he was in, I think, Honduras.
Okay.
And he got an email or my chart from this doctor saying, I need to talk to you. And he was like, I'm in Honduras. And the guy was like, oh, okay, well, you can talk when you get back. And Sean's like, no. What's going on? So he found out via email while in Honduras that he had Fanconi anemia. And the doctor attached to the email. Yeah. So the FA community has created a really lovely handbook.
Okay. Wow.
But they attached the handbook. So Sean's sitting there in Honduras on a computer, 2011, scrolling through this handbook, trying to learn about like what.
Oh my goodness.
What is this thing that I have? And I wasn't there. I didn't know any of this was happening. Right. So there is a handbook.
Okay.
I am not necessarily one. Like my mom is the type of person, she read the handbook back and forth. She will read all the things. We have other relatives who are like eyes closed, like just tell me what I need to know. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I don't want to read all the things, but also I need to know a little bit. Right.
Right.
So I think that it was sort of like, we just tell me what I need to know to get through the next chunk of time kind of thing. So I think a big thing with the rare disease community is just that it takes people longer. Right. And often like you're not believed.
Yep.
There was a FA mom recently who I met who said, I've known something was off for a long, long time. And people just kept saying, he's fine. And I just kept pushing. And now we know.
Right.
And so like just getting to a diagnosis is so much harder.
Right.
Because, if people are not aware that they should even be testing for this thing. And then by the time you get to a diagnosis, you might be in a worse state because you haven't been getting treatment that whole time. Yep. Right. Plus, just the hardship of going through all of that. I think another hard thing for us is that we had this name then. Right. And I remember saying to like Maya's little therapist, like adoption therapist, when he first was diagnosed, and I said, okay, we finally found out what Sean has. It's called Fanconi anemia. And she was like, oh, good. So he can just like take some iron pills.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's again, like if I had said to her, he has lung cancer. Yeah. She would have had a schema file about what that meant. And she would have, understood more. But when you say like my person has this, they're like,
they recognize anemia. They know what anemia is.
Exactly.
Or something about it. And they latch onto that.
Exactly. Yep. So without the familiarity, people are like, what? Is it a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Tell me about it. And I think long ago, you and I did a whole episode on this, but then we end up having to be the advocates and the educators.
Exactly.
Right. About like telling other people, what does this mean? Both like in our communities, but sometimes with our doctors.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had lots of doctors say to us, you know way more about this disease than I do.
Which is not what you want to hear.
Not what you want to hear. Right.
No.
And so there's just always this constant like, oh, but he has this thing. Oh, but is that true for him? I know you've got your protocol, but what about him? Because this is a special thing. And do you know anything about this? So one of the things that the Fanconi Foundation has done is created like handouts that are like, when you go to the dentist.
Oh, wow.
When you go to when you go to this. So you could hand it to them and like, okay, do this little read this paper.
Yeah.
So that the provider has more information. But I mean, think about that. So then the provider's like learning in the moment with this piece of paper you just handed to them. And then as a caregiver, the extra, burden of like, I have to know that this paper exists. I have to print it. I have to bring it. I have to, like a lot of providers are really, they don't love it when you say like, you don't know anything and I want you to read this. Right. So that extra burden of feeling like you have to educate the provider. And the fear of like, are they taking this seriously? Do they understand enough? Do they know what's going on? Are they taking the right care of my person?
Right.
When it's this really rare thing. Yeah.
Another kind of angle of that, needing to constantly be educating and like explaining what this condition is that like, you're talking to a friend or family member about this and how this is, difficult for you and, you're looking to get support.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of like step out of that mode and like become like, okay, now I'm, educator. You have to put that hat on and it, it's an abstraction from what you're really want to be talking about and what you want out of that conversation.
Right.
That, would be frustrating.
Yeah. Because even, with FA, it's the bone marrow failure is part of it, but then the cancer, as we know, is the other part of it. And I remember even his mom saying after his bone marrow transplant, like, okay.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of people thought that he's cured and having to be like, okay, well, now I'm the bearer of bad news to be like, well, that part is okay, but there isn't a cure.
Yeah.
And so that's tricky, right? To have to feel like we're educating people. And I think that's the case with a lot of these too, is for a lot of these rare diseases, there is not a cure.
Yeah.
And, if everybody's like, I know some of these scientists who are trying to find a cure.
Right.
And the nice thing is a lot of them are like a lot of the research people have done to study FA is helping other cancers.
Okay.
Which is cool. But even like to get funding.
Right.
For, I'm sure it's hard. Now that I know there's less than 1,000, I'm sure it's really hard for them to say like, give me money to study this thing that only impacts 1,000 people.
Right. Well, and then you think that it seems incredibly unlikely that every rare disease that is like rare at that level has like a foundation that has put together those handouts and a handbook.
Right.
Like, I don't know why FA like has that, that level of resources and, community or research behind it. But like, there's got to be rare diseases as well, where it's just like, no one knows about it. Like maybe a couple people are researching it at some, university hospital, but that's it. Like that's just, and then you just never get diagnosed. You get misdiagnosed and like, that's lost time. I can certainly like, so Sarah has, ME, CFS, POTS, all of that. And there's some similarities in the like doctors not knowing about it, the time it takes to get diagnosed, but those are not rare conditions. Like worldwide, ME, CFS, like it's in the millions.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's interesting that also there can be things that are very prevalent, but for reasons, probably one of which is they're things that primarily affect women, and those things get less funding for research. I'm sure there's other factors as well.
Sure.
But like that's incredibly frustrating that, it's not uncommon.
Right.
But you're still often having to do that education piece with doctors, looking up what treatments are and then being like, okay, we see that this is a treatment. Like, is this something we can pursue? Just that additional layer of advocacy every time you interact with the health system, as well as every time you are talking to a new friend or family person who doesn't know what's going on, or it's like, what is that? And then you get it.
Yeah.
Which is
exhausting.
Why
is that? Because I would have guessed that was also a rare disease. Because it feels like there's some similarities there, right? And so what is it that makes something because it's super prevalent.
Yeah.
And you said that maybe it's more because it's experienced by women, but what is it that makes those, it's like they're not believed, you know what I mean? Like there's isn't credibility around them. And why is that if there's so many people?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a definitive answer there, but I think that part of it is there's no test to say yes or no, right?
Sure.
I think they're working on something, but it's okay, here's a list of symptoms. This seems like the most likely thing to fit. Like there's not really anything biological that you can necessarily look to and see that as evidence.
Right.
As far as I know, with POTS, there are some, like you can do some heart rate measurements and they do these tilt table tests and you can you can see how your body is responding to things and use that to kind of point to what it is. But especially I think with ME/CFS, because it is the symptoms are like, you are incredibly fatigued and, you have brain fog and, these kind of things, like those are vague.
Yeah.
They're not like very specific, like here's where we need to look to see what's going on. Sure. There are other things that can be causing those. There are doctors who will latch onto, well, I think this is psychological.
Right.
Which is infuriating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just I don't want to say generic, but just the kind of broadness of it. That there hasn't been the clear, here's what we need to look at, even for research, I think. I think with the research on it, it's been like, we just got to explore and see what kind of pops up. Right.
Right. So it's not like, oh, your blood counts, it's not something you could measure. And I could imagine somebody saying, oh, you're tired. Oh, too bad. Like, buck up. Right. Oh, you feel achy. Right. Those feel, like you said, like more like they're not measurable. Right. And they're like, yeah, we're all tired. Oh, we're all, you know what I mean? Like that.
Anything kind of where pain is a primary symptom. Like headaches are the same way. Like, okay, it's a 7. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, that's not a thing that you can really put on like a scale, because how answering that pain scale question, like Sarah always hated it when I've gone through headaches. Like it's frustrating because it's like, well, it hurts a lot, but I live with it every day. So I'm kind of used to it. So like, is it a 4 for me? But if it was somebody else, it'd be an 8. Like
exactly. No, I know. I know. The other day when we were at the clinic and Sean was in so much pain and he was like, it's a 5. And I'm like, it's your 5.
Right.
For the rest of us, it would be like a 40,
right.
And so, yeah. I think an interesting thing with rare diseases too is the piece about a treatment, right? So a lot of them don't have a cure, but even for treating things, often there isn't a treatment, or like with FA, there are certain, I think they call them centers of excellence or something like that. Okay. And like one is like, we're, like I said, so fortunate that it's here in the Twin Cities. And again, which is why I think he was diagnosed in the first place. But so we're fortunate we live right here. We're 20 minutes away, all of the things, but we hear from families all the time who are like, okay, my kid needs a transplant. Should I go to Minneapolis? Should I go to Cleveland? Should I go to California? So they have to make those decisions.
Right.
And they have to then travel and then move here for months, and like live at the Ronald McDonald House and all of that, because it's a rare thing. And so they can't just be like, I'm going to go to my hospital down the street where my insurance is covered and where my support system is.
Right.
Like I have to like go across the country. Somewhere else. And you have to make that decision of like, okay, my hospital down the street could do it, but are they going to do it as well? And they're going to understand all the things, so they have to make these extra layers of decisions where again, if it's lung cancer, and I am not in any way downplaying lung cancer, right? It's just the familiarity of it. If it's lung cancer, you could be like, oh, I'm going to go down the street. They know what to do. They've done this
or
a times.
To the city that's 2 hours, 3 hours away.
Exactly.
Still challenging, but a totally different ballgame.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And so just getting a treatment can be so hard. Yeah. Another thing is that, so fortunately, people with FA are living longer.
Okay.
And that is partly because a researcher who is here in Minneapolis has figured out how to get people through a transplant.
Okay.
So in the 80s or 90s, the success rate of FA transplants, bone marrow transplants, was like 10% or something like that. And he's the one who figured out like that if we give them this much chemo and radiation, it will be enough to like remove the bad cells, but not kill the person. So this guy that is Sean's doctor is the one who figured this out. So now the success rate, I think, is like 80, 90%.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Huge. So again, like if Sean been diagnosed in an earlier age, they would have given him this old protocol and he likely wouldn't have survived.
Right.
But by 2011, they had this protocol. They had figured this piece out. So because they have figured out this sort of bone marrow piece and that not everybody survives and it's still terrible, but they have figured it out pretty well. Yeah. Now they're moving on to like, okay, then people are living longer, and the longer they live, the more cancers they'll get.
Yeah, right.
So even the Fanconi, it used to be called the Fanconi Anemia Research Foundation, and now they've renamed it to the Fanconi Cancer Foundation.
Okay.
Because they're like, the anemia is really like a small part of it, or a part that we have figured out, and we really need to figure out this cancer thing.
Yeah.
And but as people are living longer, there's more things happening, and they're trying to figure out, like, now what do we do? Like, how do we prevent the cancers? How do we treat the cancers? And what ends up happening is that we end up being guinea pigs.
Oh, yeah.
So a few years ago, Sean had cancer in his throat. It was inoperable because the surgery would be the preferred thing. And so then we had to decide, do we give him radiation? Knowing,
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. That radiation is like potentially going to be terrible for him because his cells are not going to repair. And there was this like one article that everybody referred to that had like 12 FA patients and like only 4 of them survived. And so we went to Mayo, and Mayo was like, we're not touching him. We're not going to do it. Like, because they saw that one article.
Right.
But we're like, well, what do we do? Right. And so we're trying to like call these different. So I, the caregiver, back to like what this feels like as a caregiver, I'm like, okay, what kind of research do I need to do? Without a medical degree. So I'm trying to like talk to different people, you know what I mean? And at this point, the Fanconi Foundation has created like a virtual tumor board.
Okay.
So you can bring your case to them and they gather all the experts.
Okay. Wow.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But what I see is like we have like a family page on Facebook. And this just happened the other day. A family said, look, this is what we're going through. This is what's going on with our kid. What have you all done? It's like crowdsourcing.
Yeah. Right.
But for like huge medical decisions, because there just isn't research. There isn't, there isn't a precedence. There isn't a protocol for these things. And so they're sitting there trying to make these really huge decisions based on what people are commenting on a Facebook group. And I mean, that there's not a lot of confidence there,
Yeah, right.
And so, but like, that's what we're all sort of living with in this rare community, is to say like, well, you tell me your story. Oh, but your person was 30 and my kid is 14. So is that going to
weight on your shoulders when like you're trying to make those kind of decisions, and that's how you have to get the information and make the decision based on that's as a caregiver. I mean, and the patient, but like that is unreal.
Yeah. So again, like when Sean went through those 35 days of radiation, if it had been lung cancer, we would have known. They would have been able to say, here's what we think this is probably how this is going to go. And here's what the symptoms will be like. And here's the outcome. And certainly there's, outliers, but for the most part, right? Because it's been done a billion times.
Yep.
But for us, it was like every day it was like, I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. And everyone was sort of watching to be like, I wonder how this is going to go.
Oh.
Like, what?
Yeah.
So it's already hard. Like if your person has lung cancer, that's so hard.
Yeah.
But one part of your brain gets to, at least if I may say that, say like, they've done this a billion times. They know what they're doing. We've got some research.
We can offload that piece.
Yeah. But when you're in this rare disease community, you don't have that because you're like, we are the first.
Right.
Like at this moment, Sean is like one of like the grandpa of the group, right? So things that happen to him, like, are not happening, have not happened to other people yet, or, and so the weight of that, like this family that is currently trying to make these decisions, and certainly they're working with the tumor board, but also they're gathering like this FA data.
Yeah.
But even the tumor board, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because these things have not happened before. And so we're having to make these big old decisions.
Yeah.
Based on little to no data. And that's awful.
Yeah.
And then to make decisions about like, do we travel across the country? Do we do this thing? Is it going to be that much better if we go to Minnesota? When Sean was first diagnosed and we said to this expert doctor, we didn't know at that point. And I said, should we do the transplant here at the U of M or should we go to Mayo? Because like the Mayo is right.
Yeah, right.
You know,
you think, yeah.
And he said, if you want him to live, you will do it here. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, good to know.
Oh. Wow.
He has an ego, but he's earned it because he's broken through the science in a lot of ways. But yeah, so I think there's that piece. But then also while you're going through those hard things, there's fewer supports.
Right.
So again, if my person had lung cancer, there's like a lung cancer support group on every corner, right? There's lung cancer Facebook groups. There's lung, all those pieces. And fortunately for us, the Fanconi Foundation has great stuff. Like they have a camp and they have meetings and they do have things, but a lot of those don't.
Yeah.
So you're going
it's not going to be in person.
For sure. Oh
because
yeah, for sure.
They're so spread out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1,000 people across the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're already going through this hard thing. Yeah. You're already fighting in all these other ways. And then there's less support. Because people don't get it and there aren't support groups potentially for it and all of those things. And so it's just hard on top of hard on top of hard.
Yeah. Something I wanted to ask about, and this it ties in a little bit there, is, having to constantly be doing the advocating piece and people don't understand what you're going through from, the specific medical context, or they don't have a reference point, or you're having to do your own research and all of that. That the additional level of isolation as a caregiver has to be, significant. And so I would imagine when you first meet another caregiver whose person has FA, that would be a very could be a powerful experience, right? Yeah. And as well for a patient, right? So do you remember the first time you guys met someone else in this with dealing with the same disease? And maybe because you're in Minneapolis, it happened earlier than maybe it would have if you were, somewhere else in the country. But
yeah, for sure. I know that when he was first diagnosed, someone said, hey, I know somebody whose daughter lives in St. Paul and had a transplant, and she had a blog about it.
Wow.
And so I started reading the blog, and then I was like, I don't want to read this blog.
Yeah, fair.
Because I was even her experience might be different, and I don't want to get worried about things that whatever. And I can't remember if we, now of course we're friends with that family, but I can't remember when we first met them. But we did end up going, it was a year and a half in maybe that we went to the camp.
Okay.
And so every year they have a camp, and it's for all the kids and the parents and the whoever's. And that was wild.
Yeah.
Because it's genetic, and most of these rare diseases are genetic. There's a certain look.
Okay.
About the eyes, about the face. Okay. And so it's you're looking around, and I'm like, that's an 8-year-old Sean.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so you can see something to see a whole room full of people who have this rare thing. You're like, oh, wow. It's wild. It's really wild. There's this commercial I keep seeing where there's a kid who really looks like an 8-year-old Sean. And I'm like, I think that kid has FA. Oh, I can see it on the commercial.
Ooh.
Anyway, but so for, it's beautiful and it's hard.
Yes.
Because you also see here's some people who have this disease who are missing a finger. Here's someone who is, they have hearing loss. They have this, they have that, they have, and so there's that piece. There's also it's a comfort, but it's also hard. A lot of the, Sean's one of the oldest. And so especially when you're at the camp, there's a lot of kids, and the parents were wanted the kids to all meet Sean.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful, but also really hard.
Yeah.
So, but even when you said it about meeting another caregiver, when we were, they had the adult meeting here in Minneapolis last fall, and we went, and there were a couple of moms who of young adults who were also in really hard moments. Yeah. And I keep thinking about how both of them, those moms, were just what do we do? I mean, you just got to keep going, and whereas the moms who were in situations, or the caregivers who were everything's fine, they're just yeah, here we go. But these other moms who were in it, we are, were what, we just one foot in front of the other. We wouldn't have picked it. This is what our life is. And here we go, So it's both helpful. It's always like what I say at support group. It's like, I'm glad we found each other, but I wish none of us were there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm happy to meet other people in it, but I'm also like, oh, you're going through it too. This is terrible. I don't want anybody to be going through this, and, we all speak sort of a shared language. And so it's helpful in that way.
Right.
One thing I have thought about as well is just sort of like on the day to day, like if I just like randomly meet somebody, like if I, sometimes I'm like, oh, that neighbor, I feel like is mad that I haven't shoveled yet or whatever. I just always want to be like, my husband has all the cancers.
Right. Yeah.
So if there's like a easy way to say it, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So there's even that, like if I just said, my husband has lung cancer, right? Like if there was that, then that's a different thing and they know and I know. But instead, sometimes I'm like, how do I, on a very easy, sometimes I'm like, my husband has all the cancers. And they're like,
right.
All the cancers? What?
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Not to undermine having all of the cancers at all, but there are rare conditions where, that there isn't a, the result is that you get something that people know what it is. Right. Like you might not be getting the symptom itself might just be doing something. And it's like, oh, then you don't have any sort of shorthand to really approach or make a connection with anybody on like, okay, what's actually going on? Yeah.
I was remembering too that one of the cancers that Sean has had was bladder cancer.
Right. Yeah.
And the kind, which is not typically an FA thing, but the kind he has, only 40 people in the world have ever had that kind.
What?
Yeah. So it's always like, he's the rare within the rare within the rare within the rare. And so, even if they say, like, oh, the symptom's probably not going to happen or this side effect or whatever, it's always like, well, let's get ready for that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a lot of that kind of thing. But I think even, right now I'm in the mode of trying to avoid the ER. Like I'm trying to be like, let's get through this recovery without going to the ER. But that's a hard, like it's one thing when we see our regular doctors, but we show up at the ER.
Oh yeah.
And then, it's in the health system. So they open the chart, but sometimes they're like, and we sometimes have people who's Fanconi anemia. So his blood counts. And I'm like, you are a medical professional.
Yeah.
But I think that, so then there's that piece too of even like, if you have your system, like if you're at the emergency room or if it's a different person, like even the medical professionals are not necessarily aware. And so then that can be challenging.
Yeah. Like someone in that setting, not to give them a pass on like talking about, latching onto the anemia piece, but like I would imagine Sean's chart is,
oh my gosh,
expansive.
So
right.
Big.
Like testing the limits of my chart, of what my chart can hold.
They're always like, I don't know, my computer's really slow right now. I'm like, girl, I know why your computer's slow. It's because you just opened this chart.
To expect a random ER doctor to be able to but then to know that you can't rely on like the average person going to the ER may have never have almost no chart, right?
Sure.
Like a couple pages maybe. And like, okay, that's to know that like it's going to be complicated regardless because of all of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to summarize.
Yeah. Okay.
That those of us out here who are caring for someone who's rare, that often the diagnosis took longer and was harder and included a lot of like fighting and advocating. Once you find a diagnosis, it's hard because there's often like, we don't know. We don't know the treatment. We don't know the next steps. We don't know the cure. There's a lot of hard decision making around, do I stay here? Do I move? Do I go somewhere else? Do I listen to this person? Do I get a second opinion? It can be isolating because people in your community don't know about it. And also the people who have it are maybe spread out.
Yeah.
And so there's less support in that way as well. So it's just, like way back in the day when we started this, we would talk about like rocks in our backpack.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like caregiving itself is so hard, so heavy, but there's extra layers, I think, and extra heaviness if you are a rare disease caregiver. And so shout out to all of you who are out there who are dealing with that. Yeah. are there things that we think that supporters can do to help?
Yep. So one thing, I think, with a couple caveats, is doing some research on your own, not necessarily relying on being fully educated by either the patient or the caregiver. Sure. Now, I will say, don't then think that you know more or any sort of expert on it.
Sure.
And that their experience with it or how the disease is manifesting in this particular person may be different than what you have read, right?
Yep.
So, I think it's really, for me, very meaningful for someone to be like, to know that they took the time to like learn about this rare thing or not rare thing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, Sarah had, and like that they cared enough to be like, I want to know more about what their experience is. But I think then the way to approach that is to, hey, I was reading about ME/CFS, or I was reading about Fanconi anemia, and, I read like this. Is that what your experience is like? To be a little bit of a qualifying, like, okay, I learned this. Does that line up with your experience? And just to show that you care, but also like acknowledging that there is nuance and different ways things are, and it's not, okay, I read it, I understand it, I can close the book, expert. I have my reference points.
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's even a way to say, I would really like to learn more about what you're going through, and I don't want to put the burden on you of having to educate me. Where would you recommend? Like, what's a good source?
That's great. Yeah.
Is there an article? Is there a handbook? Is there a website? Like, where do you feel like is a reliable source that I can do this research? I mean, that would feel great.
Yeah.
If somebody did that.
For sure.
Yeah. I think alongside that, and we've talked about this in our sort of advocacy conversations, but it's like sometimes as the caregiver, I need to be doing research myself.
Yep.
And I'm not like, that's not my Enneagram strength, love. I don't love researching. And so, but I know other people who do. Right. And so you could say like, is that something that I could be doing for you? Right. Is there any researching or any whatever that I could be doing that could help you? And so that's a way that a supporter could help as well.
Yeah. I think another thing is simply, and this is maybe more for the stage where there is not yet a diagnosis, and that is simply to believe the caregiver, to believe the patient, to not brush things off as, oh, that's probably nothing, or that's got to be just this, or do you really need to be flying across the country to see an expert? And like, my uncle, had those symptoms and it turned out to be this, and to take seriously the concerns that, these people have, and to trust that they know that something is off. Yeah. Right. Like if you're living it with it day to day, like you can tell that something is not right.
Right. Yeah. And guess what? This isn't fun. Like, no. So why would, why would we want to be digging into, you know what I mean? But just to even say like, your person better than anybody. And I'm sorry that you haven't found an answer yet, but I believe you that you know them and that you know that something is off. Yeah. Yeah. Something that we didn't talk about is the fundraising piece.
Oh yeah.
And so often because like Susan G. Komen's everywhere and pink stuff and whatever for breast cancer, but they, that's not the case for these small diseases. Plus they need more funds because, they're
going to get less grants and all of that.
Right. Exactly.
All of that. Yeah. And
so, that can be a thing. And that is something that I have struggled with like, in the FA community, they're like, okay, everybody do a fundraiser. And I'm like, I am in the middle of it. Like I can't organize like a 5K or a bake sale, but other people, a supporter could say that like, hey, would you want me to do, I love a bake sale. I love a 5K. Do you want me to like set up a fundraiser on your behalf or whatever that is? And whether that's for your family, for your travel expenses or for like FA research,
right.
And so, I think that's another piece is, or if you see a family and they are having that bake sale, like, please just donate, just give them a little bit, throw them a bone, even if it's a little bit of money, just to be like, I see you, and I'm here to support you in this way. And, how can I help?
Or, maybe you have, depending on like how charitable giving works through your company or whatever, but to support the foundations that are providing that research.
I love it.
That's huge.
That's huge. Yeah. We've had that before where people for like Christmas or Sean's birthday, like they're like, I made a gift to the Fanconi Cancer Foundation in your name, you know, and that means so much.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, oh, you know, and you understand and you found it and you know what I mean? All of those things, that means a lot. And so, yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah. And I think, you know, because it is Rare Disease Month, this is a great time to say to somebody in your life, hey, you know, I've been thinking about you, and I know that caregiving is hard anyway, but I just heard this podcast and just I'm thinking about all the extra layers that you might have as a caregiver. And so just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we will have a support group on this topic. So whether your person has a rare disease or not, like you said, I mean, your person, it's not rare, but there's a lot of commonalities or whatever that is. So look for the information about when that's going to be, but that will be coming up soon and we can talk more about it in person. So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for talking. We'll get through February. It's already, you know, we're a weekend, so we can do it. It's the shortest month. So we got that.
That's true. And we have the Olympics. The Olympics.
That is true. We do have the Olympics.
So we can latch onto that. And
yeah. It's the little things, right? Also, I don't know when we'll talk next. So the February 20th is Caregiver Day.
Right.
National Caregiver Day. So if you're a supporter, start thinking about, is there something you can do to send a little love to a caregiver in your life on the 20th? I mean, every day, but definitely on the 20th. So yeah. All right. Good to talk to you, friend. We'll see you later.
Great. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to hosts@insickness.care. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver. Thanks for listening and take care.